My name's Jeff Bajorek, and my career in sales has been a hell of a ride. And I want to bring you along with me. If you prefer to sell things at a premium, if you never want to win a deal on price, rethink the way you sell. Welcome back to the show. My name's Jeff Bajorek. I am your host. Today, I'm going to share with you a conversation I had with my friend Andy Racic. This was actually from September of 2020, and as I was going back and re-listening to this, I know the content is extremely valuable. The recording quality of this particular episode was not up to my normal standard. So one of the things that's nice about going back and listening to some of this stuff is just recognizing how much I've grown, through the process of podcasting over the past couple of years. Even more so if I go back to early episodes of The Why and the Buy. But it's kind of fun every once in a while to look back, right? And, I've said this before, if you see success as a mountain to climb, the more you climb, the more you realize that the mountain has no summit. The only way you can really judge your progress is by turning around and looking back and recognizing how far you've come. So take that and let that sit there for a little bit. But in this conversation, we talked about trusting your process and believing that the results will be there. If you do enough of the right things, the results will be there. Now, getting the right things right is obviously important there, but when you commit to a process and you recognize that results are not immediate, nor are they guaranteed, it just helps, again, take that step back, recognize the bigger picture. So lean into the work, control what you can control, and trust that the results will come. Here's my conversation with Andy.
I Am the Master of My Fate. Written by Andy Racic, read by Doug Branson. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. William Ernest Henley, Invictus. Henley isn't wrong, but we need to be clear. As seductive as the idea of having control is, as rational people, we simply must accept that so much of our life is outside of our control. There is a lot that we can do to change and improve our lives. And there is a lot we can do day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, interaction to interaction to guide and influence our fate. That's what drew me to sales, to improve my win rate in any given interaction with people by learning, to quote Liam Neeson, a very particular set of skills. But again, despite our best efforts, so much is outside of our control. We're being confronted with that fact more so now than ever. No one expected a virus to turn into a global pandemic. If that weren't enough, we have protest and civil unrest across the world. As an aside, it's my belief and hope that through all of this pain, we will emerge as a society better than ever, but I'm getting off topic. So, what does this have to do with sales? For many of us, we have limited control over what we're doing day to day at work. We have little to no real control over what's happening with our prospects and clients. Ideally, we have measurable influence, but to call that control would be a stretch. So, when everything is going to hell, why bother? For me and my team, it's a matter of mindset, one of the few things we can control. Things are rough, sure. We probably won't hit the forecast we put together last year. That's almost a given. But day to day, I can look at the work and the quality of work I'm putting in and feel good about it. The results may not be what I want, but I'm not worried about that. Outside of a handful of industries and sectors, everyone is suffering across the board and few are hitting the goals they planned. I don't focus on that. I focus on whether or not I'm happy with the honest effort I put in each and every day. Henley is right. We are, or at least we can be, the captain of our souls. Mindset is a choice. You have control over it. Don't forget that.
What's up, Andy?
Well, another day in paradise.
It's warmer where you live than it is where I live, but I'm enjoying the run of weather we've had here. It actually kind of feels a little bit like paradise here. But you wrote a post on Thursday, on June 11th, and I'm the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul. William Ernest Henley in Invictus. I love this. Henley isn't wrong, but we need to be clear. So much of our life is outside of our control. What prompted this?
I think we as probably people in general, and maybe just certain personality types, but especially as salespeople, we try to shoulder perhaps more responsibility of outcomes than is really reasonable or fair, and that can lead to really good outcomes because you can achieve above and beyond and do things that no one ever thought was possible. But if you're not handling that properly and your mindset isn't right, and the way in which you go about thinking about things of outcomes and controlling them and whatnot, you can lead yourself down a pretty bad path and just give yourself a lot of stress that can have some serious negative impacts. And obviously, it's old news that we're going through a little bit of a thing right now in our country and even across the world. So I just thought it might make sense to share some thoughts around how and why do we think about what our responsibility is, and how do we respond to bad, traumatic, troubling times, whatever it is, and still be positive as we can without being unrealistic, and continue to be productive.
I was told early on in my career not to get too high with the highs or too low with the lows. Didn't really know what that meant. I was told to control the controllables. Oh, okay. I don't know what you mean, but that sounds just fine. Salespeople, you're taught that you're the motor of the business. You are the engine that's driving revenue that makes the rest of things work. And go get them. And then you feel this responsibility. Then all of a sudden, since sales is a results-oriented game, you're thinking about outcomes. And you're worried about outcomes. And that's how you're ultimately going to be judged. And your ego gets involved. And I remember this hit me hard. It was 2014. In 2013, I had one of the best years I'd ever had. Company took a hit. I was able to, with some PR stuff, I was able to really manage my way through that and hold on to a lot of my business. And I demonstrated a lot of leadership in the field. And I was awarded Rep of the Year. In 2014, I fell on my face through things that were no longer in my control. I had a mature territory. There were factors in the market. People weren't buying what I was selling. And that was a market trend shift. There was nothing I could do about that. Yet still, every month, my manager's calling me saying, "Hey, man, you got anything?" And I'm the guy who's used to delivering, right? I was the guy who tripled my revenue in the first 18 months and then was just on a steady climb ever since then. And I was the guy that you could count on, and I felt like you couldn't count on me. I was doing everything I could. It wasn't that I was, old tactics that just didn't work anymore. I was trying to freshen my game. There were factors outside of my control. Yet every month I'd see the report, and I'd notice that my manager would miss his number by roughly the same amount that I missed mine by. And I did not like that. And it took therapy, quite frankly, for someone to say, that's really unrealistic of yourself. I see where you're coming from, but that's unrealistic. How are you supposed to control that? How do you get around that? How do you divorce yourself from the outcomes and invest yourself in your efforts into the things that you can control? Because there's a disconnect there, right?
Yeah. And it's not easy. And I definitely don't have the, here's the 100% guaranteed way to do it. But I've actually been through a very similar kind of experience myself. So in 2013, joined a company, had a okay but slow start. First year was very average, nothing to be happy about. Second year, far and away the best rep in the office by like 25%, and top like 7 or 8% of the country across a couple hundred reps. Awesome year. And then the next year, the oil and gas market crashed, and that was all of our business. Our office went from like 40 people to like 15 or something like that. Like survived because I had a book of business, and luckily I could squeak some wins in here and there. But I had to learn then. I was forced to learn that your number, your performance is not the measure of who you are, and it's not the measure of your success or anything like that. As long as you're still putting in the honest work and the honest effort, because you can easily just chalk it up to the market being bad and not do anything. There's an old Mitch Hedberg joke. I was a newspaper delivery boy.
I used to have a paper route when I was younger. I was a paper boy. I was supposed to go to 2,000 houses or 2 dumpsters.
It's really easy to fake activity, but that then you have to be comfortable basically lying, right? And that's not something that's ever sat well with me. Right. So as long as you're putting in the effort, you can still find some success in most market conditions. Like, hey, if you're unfortunately in like travel and tourism, you're probably taking a beating right now, and that's just beyond control. But it's just a matter of adjusting expectations, and then just understanding that, hey, if I know this job, because I've been successful in it or been successful at least in similar enough jobs, I know the amount of work and effort and quality of work it takes to be successful, profitable, an asset to my business, whatever it is. And yeah, that'll have to change and shift around a little bit, because, hey, maybe prospecting you need to be prospecting, but maybe you need to do it differently, or, find different people to prospect to, whatever it is. But as long as you're putting in the honest effort, you should at least be like, yep, I'm comfortable with the work that I'm delivering and the value that I'm building for my business, regardless of the results right now.
Right. And I think you got to reframe what a win looks like, right? Those little victories. What's interesting is that drought for me lasted most of the year for 2014. And then in 2015, when I eventually left the company to start my business, I was on pace for my best year ever. Like it's amazing. Like when you're in the moment, right? You can't get too high with the highs, can't get too low with the lows. Well, sometimes the lows last 9 to 12 months. And there's just not anything that you can do about it. But when you're in it, you don't often have the perspective to recognize that this is a lull, that the overall trend is still up and to the right. And listen, I still would have left the gig. It kind of was ironic that the strife that I put on myself, or that I went through in order to get through that, and caused me to make a really great career move. Also, if I wasn't paying attention at the moment, I would have just written it off and whatever, fire me, because they weren't going to do that. Then I could still unfortunately be in that job right now. So there's kind of a lot of different ways to look at it. How much do you study Stoicism and things like that? Like I've read a lot of Ryan Holiday's work, and the thing that I can control, the only thing that I can control forever that you cannot take away from me, is my reasoned choice, right? My ability to choose how to feel about this thing. Do you study that, or is this just something that you've kind of picked up by osmosis through the years because you're a really well-read guy anyway? I'd like to say that I study it more than I have, and Ryan's on my to-read list, relatively high up there, because when I say someone's on my to-read list, that means almost nothing. If that list is too long, I need to prune it. But no, he's very high up there, but haven't read. What is it? Marcus Aurelius has something that's very highly touted. Also on there, actually bought it on Kindle forever ago, but just haven't sat down and forced myself to do it. But I'm very much a big proponent of meditation, and specifically meditation for mindfulness. It's not something I practice as much as I can, or could, but something I definitely do and try to keep top of mind, especially during stressful situations. So I think, the way you phrased it, through osmosis is probably the way it's come about. I binged a significant portion of Tim Ferriss's entire podcast collection, and it's a big theme through a lot of what he does, as well as the people on there. So I just beg, borrow, copy, and steal from successful people and cobble together what works. But yeah, big fan of Stoicism, and almost always have and always will be. Well, they say that if you focus on a process, you get results. If you focus on results, you get frustrated. And I think that your piece really encapsulated that. The way it flowed, like it just resonated. This is some of, and I told you this, but I think this is some of the best writing I've ever seen out of you. And just the way that
you started with a story, the thesis is right there, and then just everything. It felt like it could have been a lot longer. And I'm not criticizing by that way. It felt like you were onto something here, and you were kind of tapped into a flow. It was really fun to read. I was sad to see that it was over when I got to the end of it. And that I don't love to read, Andy, but this was really, really well done. And so thanks for putting it out there. This is good stuff. And I'm looking forward to seeing more. And hopefully people jump in the comments and tell, really everybody what they have to say about this, because this is a really nice piece.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. Certainly look forward to any and all feedback of any all forms. Always happy to hear some.
Eggs on the front of your house. That
maybe not that. That's a good point. Maybe caveat that a little bit.
In Austin, Texas, here he is, Mitch Hedberg, everybody.
Thanks, Andy.
Yep. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. I carry a microphone wherever I go, just in case this stuff happens.
Andy is sneaky good at what he does. You're not going to see him out there as one of LinkedIn's top sales stars. He doesn't do a lot of self-promotion. He just gets the job done. And when you watch him sell, when you watch him operate, quite frankly, when you watch him coach, you recognize that he is one of those few people who actually understands why stuff works and not just what works, which means he can decode it for people and help them understand too. And we touched on some things there that fall in line with a lot of stoicism and stoic philosophy in terms of looking for opportunities in every obstacle, and controlling what you can control. That's fundamental to selling, which is why I think stoic philosophy resonates so well to me, is because lessons that I've learned throughout my career end up being confirmed by this ancient wisdom. There's plenty of time to discuss that on another episode. But I wanted to mention too, Andy is someone that I have coached with, and I've brought him in on engagements with me. We ran a small group, kind of a beta of whether or not this coaching program would work in the fourth quarter of 2021. And we had brilliant results with the small group who took the leap with us early on. And he and I are doing more programs like that. So if you're on the mailing list, or if you follow me on LinkedIn, you connect with Andy on LinkedIn, you're going to hear about when these programs are starting. And I look forward to bringing them to you, because there's just so much good that is done as a result. So I'd like to thank Andy for sharing that time with me. I'd like to thank him for indulging in these programs with me. And we'll put his link to his LinkedIn profile in the show notes like usual. And as always, I want to thank you, because there are a lot of ways you can spend your time. You chose to spend this time with me and with Andy in this episode. And I thank you, and we'll do it again soon.
Rethink the Way You Sell is a Pod About It production. It's mixed and edited by Doug Branson, with music by Blue Dot Sessions and Doug Branson. This podcast is masterminded by Jeff Bajorek.